Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to start talking about Chapter 5, which is on word problems. And this chapter goes through how you set up different kinds of word problems. In Section 1, we start looking at the units that your answer should have. And so when you have a word problem, you first definitely need to read the problem, but your book points out that in order to solve a word problem, you have to get rid of the words. And so when you are considering your word problem, there are three things that you need to write down as you start reading your problem. The first thing is, what is it asking you to find? And you need to have what it's asking you to find with the units. Okay? The next thing is your data. And your data that we're talking about are what conversion factors, like you talked about in Chapter 4, you would use to go from the unit it's giving you to start with to what it's asking you to find. And then the third step is, how do you solve this problem? And so that's where you would actually do the math to solve the problem. So when you start with your wanted, usually your wanted will be a single unit something. Although sometimes you can have problems where it's asking you for ratio units as the answers or for complex units as the answers. Your data, again, is going to be your conversion factors. Those things that you talked about in Chapter 4 that equal 1, like 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. Those are things that you're going to list in your data section. What do you need to go, again, from the units they gave you to start with to the units they're asking you to find? And then in your solve section, that's where you're just going to set up your problem to solve for whatever unit it asks you for. And so your book in Section 1 starts going through how you solve calculations, and it talks about the units and how you figure out what those units are for. Please remember that the unit depends on what it's giving you. So like if they're asking you how many eggs are in a dozen, then the unit would be eggs. The unit for what you want is going to be eggs. And so when you read through your problem, if it's asking you to find a mass, then most of the time the mass it will ask you for should be in grams, unless it specifies a different unit for you. If it's volume, it could be in meters cubed or centimeters cubed, but if it's a liquid volume, it could be in milliliters or liters. So you would get that information from what is given to you in the problem. In Section 5.2, that's where you start talking about how you come up with your conversion factors. And there are a couple of things that you need to pay attention to. Again, making sure that you watch for certain words so that you know when it's trying to give you an equality. For example, for the word per, if I tell you miles per hour, where that per means divide, as it does in all situations you encounter it. Okay, so you would write that as miles on the top, and then you put a division bar, and then you put your hours, which is the same thing as having miles on the top and hours on the bottom. So either one of these would be a correct representation of using the word per, where you place that division bar. Remember, if you have a problem where they give you a unit and it's got a slash in it, where that slash is, or that division bar, that's where you put your equal sign. So it's already giving you the conversion factor that you'll need to solve the problem when you do it with a fraction that they've given you in the problem. And so your book goes through several examples of converting different units to ones that are asked for. And in lesson 5.3, again, it talks about how you proceed through your problem to solve. It recommends that you circle what it is you're solving for, especially when it's a single unit. But remember, anytime you have a problem, you're always going to start with what they give you. So the number that they give you in the problem the one, and generally it's the one that only has one unit. That's what you're going to start with. And then anything that has multiple units or anything that has division, you're going to use that as a conversion factor. And so then in section 5.4, it goes into how do you find the given for single units. And it works you through how you solve a problem like that. And then you have your review quiz on page 93. And you can find the answers for that review quiz on page 96. There are a lot of word problems in this chapter, so if it's anything that you have questions on, please make sure you ask those and get any assistance that you need. I am here if you need me. Reach out. Let me know if you've got any questions. I hope to see you in our Collaborate session this week, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.